What's going on, everybody? My name is Nick.
And my name is Dave.
And this is the Deep Dive. And here we are back again with a new sermon series titled One of a Kind. And what are we kind of talking about, Dave?
Well, you know, God has created us as individuals with specific gifts and wants us each to live into those gifts to its fullest, to experience life in its fullness and its wholeness. But we run into things that keep us from doing that. And so as a foundation verse, we're using Romans 12:2, which talks about don't be conformed to this world, because the world can give us some ideas about ourselves and about life in general that can be harmful.
Yeah.
And so we're kind of looking at themes around that. And so it makes more sense as we get into each week's theme than maybe what I just described.
Right.
But we can talk about this week and maybe it'll be more clear.
That's true.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's jump in. Well, Dave, we had NFL football start this week. And
Yeah.
I know that I feel disappointed in myself.
Okay. Am I going to have to say it, or you, that we're...
Yeah. So just so you guys know some context, and this is why I'm disappointed, right? Is about a month or so ago, the guys were like, hey, we should do a fantasy football league. So it's about 10 people got into this league. And Dave goes, I'll sign up. I don't really know anything, and you're going to have to help me get going. And he beats me week one, everybody.
Yeah.
Week one, he beat me.
We faced off when I saw that it was the two of us going head to head.
I know it had to be.
So it was good, but it was a good game. And,
It was close.
It was close, and so
Couple players one way or another.
A long season, but yeah, I did take a little delight in that. But it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun. It makes you pay attention to those games that you don't normally pay attention
It's true.
to. More,
it kind of gives you a little more enjoyment of the overall
Sunday
season
night, trying to see what's going to happen. Yeah.
But we got to figure out if for the league we're going to have some sort of like whoever finishes last has to wear a shirt to church or something that says I'm terrible at fantasy football or something like that.
We'll figure it out.
Out. Well, like we said at the top, we are into a new sermon series, this one of a kind, talking through Romans 12:2 and some themes around that. So, Dave, get us rolling.
Okay, so this first week we looked at the battle of the mind, because if we're going to be transformed by the renewing of our mind, if we're not going to be conformed to this world, then we need to look at what are the things that gets thrown out that give us bad messages? And so, first of all, I did take some time explaining, because sometimes we throw out the word world in church, and we mean it in almost two different ways that seems sort of counter to one another, because God created the world, right? And everything in it, and he called it good.
Was good. Yeah.
It's good. And there's so much about the world that is beautiful. From nature to human beings doing kind things to one another and showing compassion, and just all the different ways in the world that we experience God. But there are some negative messages that world or worldliness can throw out that really do throw us into it's sometimes some dark places, some bad places, some places that just lead to harm.
Yeah.
And so this week, as we kind of dug into that, we looked at where are we getting the messages that are shaping us? There's this old thing, I think it came from computer programmers, of a garbage in, garbage out. But it really applies to everything. Whatever we're feeding into our mind is eventually going to make its way out into our lives if we're not careful, if we're not understanding, cautious, and being constantly renewing our mind with the Spirit of God. And so the two major areas that we looked at this week, one was just the message that sometimes comes in the world, and just in a general way, just say with just advertising that's out there. But it's this sort of pressure to fit in, to feel like we're not good enough, that if we're not buying this product or doing these certain things, that we just don't measure up, and it can make us feel bad about ourselves.
Yeah.
And, I use the example because I've just started noticing it because of where I track on the internet. I'm getting a lot more ads for stuff around babies.
I wonder why.
Yeah, because of being a new grandparent. And so it's amazing to me how some of these ads are sort of focused on like you're not being a good parent if you don't do this particular things. You're causing harm for your baby.
Yeah.
And they're trying to sell you a product, but it makes you feel like you've got to go and spend this money so your kid will have this thing or this experience or that. Can you think of other examples of stuff where we run up to that? I mean, it happens all the time, but
I think we run into that. I know social media was a big proponent of something you were talking about, and how on our feeds a lot of times we'll look at, us like as a parent, you'll look at other people and their families and go, well, I'm not doing this with my kids.
Right.
Am I not meeting the mark as a dad or whatever? So I think there's just a lot of those easy
and
comparisons.
we will spend some more time looking at that. And this week, actually, we're looking at the trap of comparison.
Yeah.
But that's one of the ways, and we didn't even get into that on Sunday with that social media. We look like, and we see people putting the best version of themselves out there, and we're thinking about our everyday.
Yeah.
And so we get into this sort of comparison thing, and that certainly can cause harm in us not thinking about the way that God created and intended for us to be. But what I spent a lot of time, maybe some people would say too much time on, was just talking about this idea about truth, and truth being something that is, irrelevant.
Yeah.
Or, there are different truths or that sort of things. And so, we kind of unpacked that because there's a real battle for truth these days. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it does stem from social media, but I think it's always been there.
Yeah.
But one of the big examples, which also involved you, was just talking about there are things that are true because they are facts.
Yeah.
And then there are opinions. And sometimes we get those things confused.
Yeah.
And I think the sort of divisiveness of social media and the sort of political landscape throws us into these camps. And so I use the example, which I'll go ahead and share again here. It's like, it was a fact. I was preaching the sermon. My name was Dave Benson. I was preaching the sermon.
You were.
That's a fact.
Yep.
Now, somebody could have come out of there and said, well, who gave the sermon today? And if they said, well, Nick Yoder gave the sermon today, well, that wouldn't have been a fact, would it?
I hope not.
I hope not. Right. It wouldn't have been. Now, it could have been that person was mistaken. They're new to the church. There's Nick and Dave. They don't, they kind of confused. And if they were presented with the fact, well, no, that's not true. This was Dave Benson.
That was Dave, yeah.
That was Dave. But if they doubled down and said, oh, no, you may have that fact. I'm just giving alternative facts here. It was Nick Yoder. And it kind of created their whole universe around that. So does that make sense? Because
I think so.
That's happening so much today. The people don't like this set of facts that are provable.
Yeah.
They're scientifically proven or whatever by data or eyewitness, whatever. They're just facts.
Yeah, it does seem like more so now than at least the time I can remember.
Yeah.
I like how you say alternative facts, but it doesn't feel like there's like this, like almost this absolute truth. It's kind of the truth through this lens or that lens about anything.
So
you can look at any. I mean, watch the news for 5 minutes, and you're going to find 15 topics where you're going to see two different sides of it.
If I don't like these facts, then that's okay. I'll just take on these facts. Well, in some place, it could be opinion.
Yeah.
And so you've got to understand that it's opinion. Like I said, it's a fact. I'm Dave Benson and preaching a sermon. Whether you like the sermon or not, that's opinion. And so that may be truth to you because my opinion, what was true to me was that sermon was very confusing and didn't follow it.
Yeah.
Or somebody might say, well, I did like it. So, there's just, but we live in this polarized world where we get cast in one way or other and we just like double down on like whatever whatever our strong, fierce opinion is, that's the fact and that's truth. And we end up not valuing the other. And so where it has led, particularly in this age of social media and so easy to post things and to forward things on and to get AI to create videos, all that kind of stuff, of creating this unreal world. And so I did spend some time because I hope people know how algorithms work on social media, but I'm not 100% sure that they do.
Oh, I'm sure that caught a couple people off guard.
Right, of how that works. But like, I used a really old example because I stay away from politics. We have all stripes of people in our church. And
we want that.
And I like that.
Yeah.
That's good. And I think that that's an example for the world that we can live in friendship and respect for one another and be on different sides of things. And
Sure.
so I think that's something that the church should lean into, is the fact that, first of all, we respect one another and we all have different opinions, but, probably nothing good's going to come in of getting real political at the church. So
Right.
I try to stay away from that with illustrations and stuff, but I did use a really old example of a post that went out, or a tweet that went out on Twitter. It was in 2013, and it was it said it came from the AP, and it said that there had been some bombs at the White House, and Barack Obama had been injured.
Right.
And so they've done a lot of study of that, because it's really one of the first big times that kind of thing happened. And within like 5 minutes, that had been tweeted 4,000 times. And there's some automatic stuff that happens with the stock market. And so things started shutting down and the stock market collapsed.
Yeah.
Well, it turned out that wasn't true. It's easily, proven that it wasn't true,
Right.
But still people wanted to believe it, and it was sensational and put it out there. It went viral. I mean, it was more than 4,000 times. That was in 5 minutes.
Yep.
And you can imagine exponentially from there. And so they tracked it back, and it was some Syrian hackers from another government that were doing it for nefarious reasons. They were trying to disrupt the economic system in the United States. And so they had
Succeeded.
done that, and it worked,
Yeah.
for a short while. And that kind of thing is happening all the time these days, both from inside our country and also foreign adversaries who are, trying to do it because they just know how people work.
Yeah.
And so, we have to be careful about, so we get these posts that come across our Facebook feed or our X feed or Instagram. And lots of times we see that and say, wow, and maybe it fits our political agenda, or maybe it was a cute story even.
Yeah.
And we send it on with this idea that it's truth, and it's not. Mm-hmm. And we're perpetuating lies. And sometimes it's harmless, but oftentimes it's not.
Yeah.
And the way that algorithms work, because they want all of these social media companies, all these apps, they want us to stay on there as long as we want. And so it tracks what we look at,
Yep.
and it sends us more of the same. And so you can get into an echo chamber where you're only seeing, or mostly only seeing, things that
Been kind of curated for you.
it's been curated for us. And
Yep.
so if we're of a political stripe or theological stripe, whatever, that's the kinds of things that we're seeing. And so because it fits our worldview, we're assuming it's true, and we're sending it on and perpetuating things that are hurting us and dividing us. And, we just got to do better than that, because it's so, my wife, just this morning, I'm not trying to bust her chops, she was looking at her Facebook. She said, so-and-so said so-and-so. And I said, that sounds weird. Put it into one of the fact check things. Not true. Not true. She doesn't repost stuff like that. But,
Yeah.
I mean, it happens all the time. And I'm just asking us as Christians, as a congregation, just to be careful about how we're doing that and understanding what it's doing to us.
Yeah.
It is hurting us. It is dividing us. And we just we should be looking for the truth, and the place, getting on to the real point of the sermon, is the places we look at God's truth.
Yeah.
That should be the measure, not something we saw on Facebook or Instagram.
Yeah.
God's truth, we should be weighing against that. We should be renewing our mind with that as we're, I'm not saying stay off social media. I know there's a lot of people in our congregation who mostly do, and good for them.
Yeah.
Because I think it's gotten to be kind of unhealthy, but yeah, that makes sense. I talked a lot there.
No, yeah, it does. And I was just sitting here kind of thinking, you're talking about this, trying to seek God, letting God kind of transform. And as we're trying to seek to do that, that is consistent and absolute truth. It is finding God's love and seeking after that. In kind of the youth ministry circle, I kind of explain these things as like, we've got a lot of trends and things that, you're cool if you have, back in the day, it was like Tommy Hilfiger shirts and stuff
Right.
like that, or the latest Nike shoes. Like, you're cool if you have that. And yeah, that might feel like truth in your moment.
Right.
But that's not going to be truth forever, because you know how trends work. In two weeks, you're on to the next thing, right? That you absolutely have to have, or you absolutely have to find, and whatever. And sometimes I feel like that's kind of a similar thing in some news and some social media, is like, there's these truths that we're sticking to, and then sometimes it just switches up on you, depending on the algorithm or whatever. And I would always just encourage us to, like, when we're trying to get closer to what truth looks like, that we seek Jesus with it first,
Right. Right. Yeah. And those things that are eternal, and those things that, as you say, there are, there's a lot of opinion out there.
Yes.
Even in theological interpretation, there's a lot of opinion.
Yeah.
And so if I could, there are some of those areas that are more gray or more subjective.
Sure.
Subjective is probably better than gray, but there are some things that are just true and just and right.
Yeah.
And those are the things that, we need to be measuring it all about. And then if we have different opinions, so be it. We're human beings. So we're one of a kind. We should, but first of all, we're called to be kind and gracious and loving and compassionate to one another, and, listening to one another and learning from one another, and, but not being shaped or conformed by whatever whim or, as you were saying that, I was thinking about, like, I can think of some music groups that I used to like.
Yeah.
And still do, actually, but like, it's not cool to like them anymore. Dave Matthews. I was a huge Dave Matthews fan.
Yeah.
And now, somehow or another, that's not cool anymore. It's stupid. It's like he's a hack or whatever. And it's because we have listened to the world and their opinions, and not like been our own individual one of a kind. It's like, I don't care. I like it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly,
You look at bands like Nickelback, who
Yeah.
everybody loved when they first came out, and now they're just,
Right.
chastised if you've ever listened
And, like,
to it or whatever.
Who decided suddenly that wasn't, that wasn't popular anymore, that wasn't cool anymore?
Right.
And it can do a number with us, so we don't know how to keep up. And as you're working more with youth, but I know it affects every age and stage
for
in our
sure.
congregation, and particularly some of our young families, of like, what are we supposed to do? And we have this social pressure to conform to something that, like, next year, so we got to go out and buy an entire new wardrobe, and that's the whole thing. Like, I'm not going to be cool if I don't have the latest iPhone.
Yeah.
iPhone 17 just came out today. I will tell you, as a pastor of the gospel, as a person who preaches these things,
Yeah.
one Sunday, it's like, oh my gosh, do I need that? That came across my mind. Of course I don't need that.
Yeah.
But like, there is this pressure, because we've been told, like, if we're going to have the latest, greatest thing, and, it causes harm. It causes us harm. So,
Well, it's just, I keep thinking about, of these trends, these needs. Like, I remember in like 4th or 5th grade, do you remember Pogs?
yeah.
The little cardboard
Sure.
disc that had random things
Yeah,
on it. And
yeah.
they thought it was a great idea to give, kids this slammer that's a 1/2 inch thick piece of metal that they're supposed to throw at these things and trade. And it's like, that was a stupid trend. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It came and it went about as fast as it came. But like, I always remember these times of like, oh, I have to have this or I have to be a part of that. But as I've gotten older, I think I see kind of the beauty of this Christian walk in these verses specifically, you know, of like, I want to be transformed by the thing that's not going to change.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I want to be seeking after the thing that's not going to be a moving target, but it's going to be a solid thing that if I just work hard, you know, I may never reach Jesus, being exactly like Jesus, but I know what I'm shooting for, and that's going to still be there. So it's like, it gives me goals, it gives me something. But like when I'm trying to reach after, you know, as the Bible would say, the ways of this world, that's always going to move.
Yeah.
You know, by the time I get halfway there, it's going to be something different and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
just some reflection.
Sure. Absolutely. And so, you know, this whole pattern of trying to live up to some standard that some advertising agency or some company is hired to, that, you know, we just need to be aware and protect ourselves of it. I'm not saying to not buy the products, but just like understand when that starts creeping into the pressure to conform to by that, or to have this opinion or that opinion. Like we like this now. We don't like that. We don't like that now.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
I know you see it with young people, but like
All the time.
Yeah, all the time. And so, it's with adults as well.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's you know, and you can have your opinions. You can disagree.
Yeah.
You can
and
disagree with
that's perfectly fine and
with
healthy.
what's popular, and lots of times you should disagree with what's popular.
You know what, Dave? You should listen to Dave Matthews on the way home.
Yeah.
You should.
Yeah.
Stick it to the man.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, it just was like as a wake up one day, it's like that's no longer. Yeah, but you know, it's probably a dumb example, but it is interesting to watch those trends of what is going with that. But you know, you can take it on the spiritual level too, because there's spiritual trends that sort of come and go, and sometimes they're just fads. I think about like some popular books where people have gotten like down remember the whole prayer of Jabez thing?
Oh yeah.
Like, and everybody was praying the prayer of Jabez and stuff like that, and then like some good Christian pastors looked at that and they said, you know what? That's not a really great prayer.
Yeah.
That prayer actually, there's some prayers in the Bible that, you know, they're not really there for us to pray again. Like there's the whole psalm about like, you know, smashing the baby's heads on the
rock.
Like that's not a prayer we should pray.
Yeah.
And so this prayer that makes us become more selfish. But that's why you have to hold it up to the ultimate truth of Jesus and see what Jesus said about being selfless and putting others first, and you know, seeking first the kingdom of God rather than asking God to, you know, give them more stuff. So, you know, we just began to start unpacking what I mean by all this this week. But like we are one of a kind, and we need to understand that God has created us as unique individuals with unique gifts, and He is a unique God, and there is a way to follow that will lead us into the best lives that we can have, and not to go chasing off after what's popular, what the world may tell us that we need, or to listen to the lies, or worse yet, to perpetuate lies that are there. We need to be people of the truth and people of the Word.
Yeah. Amen.
Yeah.
Well, Dave, I think you did a good job of kind of setting up the what's coming here with that closing remark, and I think it's such a cool thing that we'll have the opportunity to kind of really reflect on how are we following God, and how are we kind of really looking at ourselves and seeing us as, well, really the way God sees us, you know what I mean? As these individual beings having our own set of gifts that don't have to look the same as everybody else's, but they're ours, and how we utilize those for God's glory and stuff like that it's always fun to encounter.
And so just to give a preview of Sunday, we're looking at the trap of comparison. And that isn't something that's new. In fact, I'll give several examples from the Bible of people who have always done it.
Yep.
From the disciples to stories that Jesus told. It's kind of a human it's kind of a human condition that we have to compare ourselves to others and think the other person is getting more than we are or better than we are, whatever. And to be able to see, as you said just a second ago, to see ourselves as God sees us,
Right.
as beloved children. So
There you go.
there you go.
Well, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you have anything to add to our conversation, drop it in the comment section below on the Facebook, the YouTube. If there's anything more personal that you need to talk through or speak about, don't be afraid to shoot us an email or something like that, and we'll respond to you as soon as we can. Dave, you're about to go out of the state for a little while.
Yeah, I am. I'll be out next week. So we got a very special podcast next
Part
week.
two with Tyler Flowers. If
Yeah.
y'all don't remember our
next
first
week.
our first sermon, that kind of go back and watch it, and then we'll actually talk a little bit about some of the stuff he does. But are you excited about your trip?
Yeah, I'm going out with on a clergy training event out to New Mexico with several clergy friends, and we'll talk about it when I get back.
Yeah.
But hopefully I will bring some good stuff back with me.
Some good stories.
Yeah, for sure. Okay.
All right, guys. Well, thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll catch you guys next time.
All right. God bless everybody.